The marble floor looked like a sheet of ice trapped inside a palace. Crystal light from the chandeliers poured down and broke into sharp reflections that trembled every time someone walked by. The air smelled like polished stone, expensive perfume, and the faint sting of cleaning solution that never truly left a building like this. Anna pushed her cart slowly, the small wheels squealing in protest. A bag of trash bumped against the side with a soft thud. Her cleaning gloves were worn thin at the fingertips, damp from wiping glass and railings all morning. The rag in her hand held the scent of lemon and metal. She kept her head slightly down, not from shame, but from habit. In places like this, looking up too long invited trouble. People flowed around her like water around a rock. Men in tailored suits spoke into phones, their voices clipped and confident. Women with leather handbags moved fast, heels clicking, eyes forward. No one said, "Excuse me." They did not need to. Anna was part of the background to them, as expected as the pillars and the elevators. She had learned what invisibility bought you. It bought you quiet. It bought you a paycheck. It bought you the ability to keep moving without being questioned. But it also meant people spoke freely when they thought no one important could hear them. The lobby doors hissed open and cold air rushed in. The sound of heels followed, sharper than the wheels of the cart. A clean, rhythmic strike that made heads turn for the wrong reason. Anna felt it before she saw it. The temperature of the room shifted, like a spotlight had swung. Clara walked in with her friends as if the building had been built for her entrance. She was young, polished, and perfectly arranged. Her hair did not move out of place. Her makeup sat like a mask that never cracked. Her designer heels hit the marble with the certainty of someone who had never been told no. A smile rested on her mouth, bright at first glance, cold if you looked longer. Anna angled her cart toward the side, giving space the way she always did. She did not want a scene. She did not want attention. She did not want Clara's eyes. But Clara's eyes found her anyway. Clara stopped directly in front of the cart, close enough that Anna could smell the sweet edge of her perfume, close enough that the air felt crowded. Her friends gathered behind her, their faces lit with anticipation, like they had been waiting for this part. Clara crossed her arms and tilted her head. Her smile was gentle in shape, cruel in meaning. Anna's fingers tightened around the rag. The cloth twisted, wet and heavy. Clara lifted something in her hand, a thick cream envelope, expensive paper, the kind that did not bend easily. Its edges were clean, sharp. A gold seal sat in the center, stamped with a design that caught the chandelier light and flashed like a coin. Clara did not offer it like a gift. She held it away from her own body, between two fingers, as if she did not want it too close. Anna's gaze fixed on the seal, gold against cream. Perfect. "Haven't seen you much lately, Anna," Clara said, her voice sweet enough to pass for kindness if you did not know better. "Hiding from me?" One of her friends covered her mouth, pretending to cough. Another looked away too quickly, shoulders shaking with silent laughter. Anna swallowed. The inside of her mouth tasted like salt and cleaner. She did not answer. Clara tapped the envelope lightly with her nail. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound was small, but it landed like a warning. "Well," Clara said, "I have something for you." Anna stayed still. Her cart did not move. The building noises seemed to dim around them, as if the lobby itself had leaned in. Clara angled the envelope forward. Then, instead of placing it into Anna's hands, she let it drop onto the metal shelf of the cleaning cart. The paper hit with a soft, insulting thud. Anna flinched before she could stop herself. Not from fear, but from the way the gesture turned her into furniture. Something to be used, not addressed. Clara's friends finally let the laughter out, low and satisfied. "It's an invitation," Clara said, lifting her chin as if she expected applause. "Victoria and I are getting married this Saturday at the Grand Magnolia Estate." She paused, enjoying the weight of the words. "And guess what? You're invited." The laughter sharpened. One friend pressed a hand to her chest, like the joke had taken her breath. Anna stared at the envelope on her cart. The gold seal stared back, bright and indifferent. Clara leaned closer, voice lowering just enough to feel private, even though everyone around them could hear. "Not everyone gets invited to something like this," she said. Anna could feel heat rising behind her eyes. Her chest tightened. The lobby lights seemed too bright. The marble reflections looked like blades. Clara's smile widened. "Wear anything you like," she added, airy and careless. "Just try not to come in that uniform. We don't want the staff thinking you're one of them." Her friends burst into louder laughter. Someone said, "Or maybe she can clean after the party," and the group cracked again, delighted with themselves. Anna's fingers moved on their own. She picked up the envelope carefully, as if it might cut her. The paper was thick, smooth. The seal was raised. Her thumb brushed it and felt the ridges of the stamp, like a brand. Gold, heavy, certain. She looked up, not at the friends, not at the people pretending not to watch, but directly at Clara. Clara held her gaze with bright cruelty, waiting for a reaction, waiting for begging, tears, anger, waiting for a janitor to perform the role she had written. Anna's face stayed still. Her breath went in and out, controlled. She felt the sting in her throat, the burn behind her eyes, and she refused to let it spill. For a moment, there was only the sound of the cartwheels settling and the faraway ding of an elevator opening somewhere above them. Anna spoke with a calm voice, quiet but clear. "Thank you." 2 words, nothing else. Clara blinked, thrown off for half a second. The smile on her mouth wavered, not from guilt, but from confusion. She had expected a crack. She had expected a plea. Anna turned her cart away. The wheels squealed again, a small, ugly sound that suddenly felt like a warning bell. She rolled forward, the envelope held in her gloved hand like something heavier than paper. Behind her, Clara's laughter resumed, but it sounded thinner now, like it had lost something it needed. Anna did not look back. The gold seal pressed against her palm through the glove, leaving an ache that felt strangely like a promise. Anna kept her pace even as the lobby swallowed her again. The cart's wheels complained on every seam in the marble, a thin squeal that followed her like a nervous thought. The envelope rested against her glove, too clean for her hands, too heavy for paper. When she passed a glass wall, the gold seal flashed back at her in the reflection, bright and smug beneath the chandelier light. Voices floated above her, careless and sharp. A man laughed into his phone. Someone argued about a contract. Someone else mentioned the wedding like it was a headline they were proud to live inside. Anna moved through it all without looking up, but she heard everything. Invisibility did not mean silence. It meant people forgot to filter themselves. Near the elevators, a group of assistants clustered around a screen, the soft ping of notifications firing off like tiny sparks. One of them glanced at Anna, then away, already done with the thought of her. The elevator chimed. Doors slid open with a clean hiss. Perfume and expensive cologne rushed out. Nobody stepped aside for the cleaning cart. Anna turned toward a side corridor instead, where the light was dimmer and the air smelled more like disinfectant than vanity. Her shoulders stayed squared. Only her fingers betrayed her. They tightened around the envelope until the paper pressed into the rubber of her glove. The gold seal left a faint ridge in her palm. It felt like a stamp. A door with a keypad sat at the end of the hall. Anna punched in her code. The keys beeped softly. The lock clicked. The sound was small but final, like a gavel on a desk. Inside, the maintenance corridor was cooler, quieter. The building's hum was louder here, the steady breath of hidden machines. She leaned her cart against the wall and looked down at the envelope again. Cream paper, gold seal, a name in fancy lettering, black tie. The words sat there like a dare wrapped in silk. Black tie meant jewelry that caught candlelight, heels that didn't slip, dresses that didn't wrinkle, hair that didn't betray nerves. It meant money. It meant belonging. It meant a room full of people who would measure her with their eyes and decide she was a mistake. Anna's throat tightened. She forced air into her lungs slowly, quietly, as if breathing too loudly might invite the shame back. She slid a finger under the seal. It held firm. Not a cheap sticker, a real stamp pressed into wax, designed to look like tradition, like dignity. She didn't tear it open. Not yet. Instead, she stared at it until her vision softened, until the gold stopped looking like celebration and started looking like a blade. They were not inviting her to witness love. They were inviting her to be laughed at, and still, a part of her refused to drop it into the trash. The corridor light buzzed faintly overhead. Somewhere deeper in the building, pipes ticked as they cooled. Anna's phone vibrated once in her pocket. Not a call, just a low reminder from the world that time kept moving whether she wanted it to or not. She tucked the envelope carefully into the inner pocket of her work bag, away from the cleaning rags and spray bottles, as if it might bruise if it touched them. Then she pushed the cart forward again, finishing her route with hands that worked automatically while her mind kept circling the same question. Go, and they break you in public. Don't go, and you confirm their story. At the end of her shift, she changed in the small employee restroom with the flickering fluorescent light. The mirror showed a woman with tired eyes and a jaw set too tight. Water ran over her hands, carrying away the smell of chemicals. The envelope stayed dry, protected, hidden, waiting. Outside, the evening air hit her face like cold truth. The city's noise wrapped around her. Engines and horns and distant sirens, all of it indifferent. She walked to the bus stop with her bag pressed against her side. On the ride home, neon signs smeared across the window glass. She watched her reflection hover over the moving streets. The envelope made a clean corner in her bag, a sharp shape under fabric. Every time the bus hit a bump, it shifted slightly, like it was reminding her it existed. Her apartment building stood under a weak streetlight. The elevator sign was still dark, out of order. Again, Anna climbed the stairs, one step at a time, the rail cold beneath her palm. Her legs ached with the familiar weight of working all day, but it was not the worst weight she carried. The heavier one sat in her bag. Quiet and pristine, she unlocked her door. The hinges gave a tired creak. Warm air met her, carrying the soft scent of vanilla from a candle she had left burning low, mixed with old coffee grounds in the sink. The room was small but clean, the kind of clean that came from someone who understood how dust settled, how corners collected, what people ignored. Anna set her bag down on the sofa and stood there without moving. For a moment, she just listened. The city outside, a neighbor's muffled television, a pipe groaning in the wall. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope. It looked wrong in this room. Too bright, too perfect, like a rich person's lie, sitting on her bedspread. She placed it on the bed as if laying down something dangerous. The gold seal caught the light from the lamp and flashed again, careless and beautiful. Anna sat on the edge of the mattress. The springs sighed under her weight. Her eyes stung. She blinked hard, but it didn't stop. A tear slipped down her cheek, hot and humiliating. Then another. Her shoulders didn't shake at first. She held herself still, like she could control it, but the tightness in her chest loosened all at once, and it poured out silently, the way grief does when it has been waiting a long time for permission. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing a clean line through the wet. Her glove was off now. Her skin felt raw. Anna looked at the envelope again. The gold letters were crisp. The date and time sat there with the confidence of people who never fear being told no. Saturday, 5 in the evening. Grand Magnolia Estate. Black tie. The words didn't fade. They didn't soften. They stayed bright, like the pain that had built up behind her ribs for years, refusing to be forgotten. She imagined the driveway lined with cars that cost more than everything she owned. She imagined the guests turning when she walked in, their eyes sliding over her, their mouths twitching as they tried to decide whether to laugh openly or politely. She imagined Clara's smile, Anna's fingers curled on the edge of the envelope, her nails pressed into the paper. It held firm. A soft sound escaped her. Not quite a sob, not quite a laugh. Something between disbelief and exhaustion. They thought she would stay invisible. They thought she would accept her place. They thought she would either show up and be crushed or stay home and disappear. Anna stared at her reflection in the dark window across the room. Her face was tired, yes. Worn, yes. But her back was still straight. Even here, alone. They don't know what they're inviting, she thought. And the thought landed with strange weight, like a truth she had been trying not to touch. They don't know. The envelope sat between her hands like a sealed verdict. And somewhere under the ache and the fear, something else began to stir, small, stubborn, and hot. Not rage, not revenge. Something steadier. A decision forming before she had words for it. She didn't open the envelope. Not yet. She slid it into the drawer beside her bed, careful, deliberate, as if placing it there could keep it from cutting her tonight. Then she sat in the quiet, listening to her own breathing, slow down. In the dim lamplight, the drawer's edge looked like a line you could cross, and Anna's hand stayed on the handle a second longer than it needed to, like part of her already knew she would pull it open again. Morning light slipped through the blinds in thin stripes, laying pale lines across the floor like quiet bars. The vanilla candle had burned down to a soft puddle of wax. Somewhere outside, a car alarm chirped once and died. The city kept moving, with or without her. Anna stood at the sink, letting water run over her hands longer than necessary. The sound was steady, almost comforting, until she shut it off, and the silence felt too sharp. Her eyes drifted to the drawer beside the bed. The handle looked ordinary. The decision inside it did not. She pulled it open. The cream envelope lay there, untouched, the gold seal still perfect. Under the lamp's glow it looked expensive and unreal, like it belonged in someone else's life. She lifted it and felt the weight again, the ridged stamp pressing into her fingers like a reminder. Anna didn't open it. She didn't need to. The words were already stamped into her mind. Black tie, Saturday, Grand Magnolia. Her jaw tightened. She slid the envelope back into the drawer, but she didn't close it all the way. Not this time. Leaving it slightly open felt like leaving a door cracked for the part of her that refused to disappear. She dressed for work with slow precision, plain clothes, simple shoes, nothing that invited questions. Her uniform went on last, like armor she did not ask for, but had learned to wear. Outside, the stairwell smelled like damp concrete and old paint. Each step down sounded heavier than it should have. When she reached the street, cold air hit her cheeks and cleared the last softness from her face. The office tower was awake before she entered it. Security guards nodded without seeing her. The lobby shimmered in its daily performance of wealth. Screens flashed market numbers. Elevator doors opened and closed with soft, expensive hisses. Somewhere high above, someone laughed loudly enough to echo. Anna pushed her cart along her route and kept her gaze neutral. She cleaned what needed cleaning. She wiped fingerprints off glass that would be smudged again within minutes. She emptied trash bins filled with glossy packaging and half-drunk designer coffee. And she listened. Near mid-morning, movement gathered above the lobby like storm clouds. Voices rose. A burst of perfume drifted down the open space. Anna glanced up just enough to see a cluster of people on the second-floor balcony. Champagne glasses caught the light. Clara was there. She leaned on the railing like it was a throne, holding her glass with practiced ease. Her friends surrounded her. Bright dresses, sharp smiles, eyes roaming below like they were shopping for entertainment. Their words drifted down in clean pieces, carried by the open air between floors. "Do you think she'll actually come?" one of them asked, the tone not curious but hungry. Clara laughed softly, the sound polished like a spoon-tapping crystal. "If she comes," she said, "it'll be the highlight of my night." Anna's hands kept moving. Cloth against glass, circular motions, no sudden stops. Clara tilted her head and looked down, scanning. "I can't wait to see everyone's faces," she added. "When Victoria's little janitor walks in like she belongs." A friend snorted. "Does she even know what black tie means?" Clara lifted her champagne in a small toast to her own cruelty. "Honestly, I'm curious," she said, voice warm with amusement. "Maybe she'll show up in that uniform, or maybe she'll borrow a curtain." Laughter spilled over the balcony, light and careless. Anna's rag paused for half a breath. Her reflection in the glass, wavered eyes, tired, mouth set, shoulders straight. She watched herself for a second longer than usual. Then she resumed wiping, slower now, as if every circle gave her time to choose what she would become. The cart squeaked as she pushed it forward. The sound cut through the lobby like a thin complaint. Nobody looked. Clara's laughter followed her in the air anyway. Anna turned into a side hallway, where the light dimmed and the building's expensive shine faded into plain walls. The scent changed here, less perfume, more disinfectant. It felt closer to truth. She stopped by a glass door that showed the city below. Traffic flowed like a river of metal. People moved in tiny clusters on the sidewalk, each one absorbed in their own urgency. In the glass, Anna saw herself again. Not the image others saw, just the woman standing here, breathing, holding her spine like it mattered. Her throat tightened. A familiar thought tried to rise, the one that always kept her quiet. Don't make trouble. Don't draw attention. Keep your job. Pay your bills. Survive. But another thought pushed through it. Smaller at first, then sharper. If you don't go, they win without even trying. Anna's fingers found the edge of her work bag. She reached inside and touched the envelope through the fabric. The raised seal pressed against her skin like a coin. Cold. Certain. She closed her eyes briefly, just long enough for memory to flicker her mother's voice. Firm and calm. Not pleading. Not dramatic. Dignity is carried. Anna opened her eyes. Her reflection stared back, and this time it didn't look like a woman asking permission to exist. It looked like a woman measuring a line and deciding she would step over it. She exhaled slowly, a controlled release of air, like letting go of something heavy. The elevator dinged somewhere behind her. Footsteps passed. Voices. The building kept performing. Anna turned away from the glass and continued down the hallway. Her cart rolled forward, wheels squealing, the sound steady now, no longer nervous. She didn't rip the invitation. She didn't throw it away. She didn't hide from the date stamped in gold. Instead, she let the decision settle in her chest. quiet but solid. She would not let them write the ending for her. By the time she reached the supply closet, her hands were no longer trembling. She set her cart against the wall and stood still in the narrow space, surrounded by stacked paper towels and bottles of cleaner. The air smelled harsh here, chemical and honest. Anna placed her palm over her bag again, feeling the hard edge of the envelope through the fabric. She whispered the word out loud, barely more than breath, not for anyone else to hear, not for drama, not for courage, for truth, time. Then she stepped back into the corridor, pushed her cart forward, and kept working with the calm of someone who had already chosen what she would do next. The stairwell smelled like damp cement and old paint, the kind of smell that clung to clothes, no matter how clean they were. Anna climbed in silence, one hand sliding along the cold railing. Each step landed with a dull thump that echoed up the narrow shaft. Her legs burned in the familiar way, but tonight the ache felt different, sharpened by everything she refused to say out loud. At the top, she unlocked her door and stepped into warmth. The apartment greeted her with soft, lived-in quiet. A faint trace of vanilla hung in the air, mixed with old coffee and clean laundry. The lamp near the bed cast a small circle of light, leaving the corners of the room dim and private. Anna set her bag down and stood still, listening to the building settle around her. A pipe groaned behind the wall. A distant TV murmured through a neighbor's floor. Her own breathing sounded loud for a moment, then steadied. She went straight to the drawer beside the bed. It slid open with a soft scrape, and the cream envelope appeared again, too bright for this room. The gold seal caught the lamplight and flashed like an eye-opening. Anna lifted it, turned it once, then set it down on the bedspread. Her fingers hesitated, hovering over the seal as if touching it too long would burn. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. The trap had already done its work. Her chest tightened anyway. The heat behind her eyes returned, but she pushed it down with a slow inhale. Across the room, a framed photo hung slightly crooked on the wall. The glass was scratched, the edges worn. Her mother's face looked out from it with a simple smile that never begged for approval. There was strength in the eyes, the kind that didn't announce itself. Anna crossed the room and straightened the frame with careful fingers. The tilt fixed, but the tightness in her chest did not. She stared at the photo a beat longer than usual. Something inside her shifted quiet, stubborn, tired of being folded into smaller and smaller shapes. Anna turned away, opened the cupboard, and reached into the back where dust gathered in a thin layer. Her fingertips touched wood. She pulled the small box out and carried it to the bed like it might be fragile. It was darker than she remembered. The corners softened from years of handling. When she set it down, it made a low, solid sound against the mattress, real, undeniable. Her hands trembled as she opened the lid. The hinge creaked, old and honest. A faint smell rose up paper that had aged, faint perfume trapped in fabric fibers, memories sealed in darkness. Photos lay inside, stacked and slightly curled at the edges. Faces stared back from a different life. Anna picked up the first photo. In it, she stood under bright lights, hair styled, posture tall. She wore a dress that fit her like confidence. People around her smiled, leaning in close. A banner behind them carried a name she hadn't seen in years without flinching. Her throat tightened. She set that photo aside and lifted another, then another. Each one was a small cut, not from pain alone, but from what had been taken and what she had allowed herself to forget. She found a picture of her parents. Her father's hand rested on her shoulder, steady and proud. Her mother stood beside them, expression calm, as if she already knew storms would come and she was teaching Anna how to stand through them. Anna's breath caught. Her fingers hovered over the next layer of items, then found thick paper. She slid it out slowly, as if it might crumble. A certificate. The edges were worn, slightly torn, but the print was still bold. The ink had not faded. The paper felt heavier than it should, the way official documents always did, like they belonged to institutions, not to people. Anna tilted it under the lamp. The light skimmed across raised lettering. Her finger traced the words, feeling them rather than reading them. Anna Adabio, founder and director. Adabio Foundation. The raised seal pressed into her fingertip, and for a second, she stopped breathing. It wasn't pride that hit first. It was grief. Sharp and clean, grief for the woman in those photos, for the rooms she once walked into without shrinking, for the people she helped, for the sense of purpose that used to fill her like blood. Then, memory snapped in harder, money stolen in her name, voices in courtrooms, headlines, people turning their backs, friends disappearing, accounts frozen, the hollow quiet after both her parents were gone. The way shame could empty a house faster than fire. Anna's hand tightened on the certificate until the paper bent slightly. She loosened her grip immediately, startled at herself, and smoothed it flat with careful fingers like an apology. She stared at her own name, not the name whispered by people who ignored her, not the name buried in cleaning schedules and employee badges, the name that had once mattered. A small sound escaped her half-breath, half-laugh, bitter and quiet. "They have no idea," she said, voice low, as if the walls might overhear and judge. She reached deeper into the box and found a folded letter. The paper was thinner, creased from being opened and refolded, but the handwriting was familiar enough to pull her back years in one heartbeat. Janet. Anna didn't read the whole thing yet. She didn't have to. The last line sat in her mind like it had been carved there. "If you ever need me, call. Anytime." Her thumb rubbed the edge of the paper, a small, repetitive motion, the kind people do when they are trying to steady themselves. She set the letter down and sat very still, surrounded by pieces of a life she had packed away like a crime. The room felt different now, as if the air had thickened with truth. Anna looked at the envelope again, the gold seal gleaming on her bedspread like a challenge. Then she looked back at the certificate, at the photos, at her mother's face in the crooked frame. Her shoulders rose with a slow inhale. Her spine straightened, not from anger, but from something older than anger. Resolve. She picked up her phone. The screen lit her fingers in pale blue. Her contact list glowed with names she hadn't touched in years. Her thumb hovered, hesitated, then scrolled with deliberate care until it stopped. Janet. For a moment, Anna's thumb hovered above the button, heavy with everything this call would drag into the open. Then she pressed it. The dialing tone sounded loud in the small room. 1 ring. 2. Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. The phone vibrated lightly against her palm. A click. A voice answered, shocked and breathless, as if it had been waiting somewhere in the past. Anna. Anna closed her eyes. The first word scraped out of her throat, raw, but steady. "It's me," she said. Silence filled the line for a beat, then a sharp inhale. "Oh my God," Janet whispered. "Is that really you?" Anna opened her eyes and looked at the certificate on the bed. The raised seal caught the lamplight again, a quiet flash of proof. Her voice softened, but it didn't break. "I need help," she said. Then, after a pause that felt like stepping onto a ledge, she added, "And I think it's time. The world remembers who I am." A low engine hum rolled through the narrow street below Anna's window, steady and expensive. The sound didn't belong here. Tires kissed the curb with a soft scrape, then stopped. For a moment the neighborhood went quieter, as if even the city was listening. Anna stood by the window, curtain pulled back just enough to see the black SUV idling under the streetlight. Its paint swallowed the light instead of reflecting it. The rear door opened with a smooth, controlled swing. Janet stepped out. She looked like a decision made visible. Sunglasses covered half her face, even though the sun was barely up. Her suit fit perfectly clean lines, sharp shoulders. Her heels struck the pavement with confident clicks that didn't hurry and didn't apologize. She shut the door with a soft, final thump, then lifted her chin and scanned the building like she was mapping the exits. Anna's hand tightened on the curtain fabric. The old instinct to hide tried to rise, but it couldn't find purchase. Not after the call. She moved to the door, checked the lock once, then unlocked it anyway and stepped into the hallway. The stairwell smelled the same as always, concrete, dust, someone's fried food lingering from last night. But the air felt thinner now, as if it had been waiting for this moment to change. When Anna reached the bottom, Janet was already climbing the first steps, moving fast, without looking rushed. They met on the landing. For a beat, Janet just stared. Behind the sunglasses, her mouth parted slightly, like she had expected a voice on the phone, not a real person standing in front of her. Then her smile broke through, warm and fierce. "Oh my God," Janet said, and her voice cracked on the last word. Anna tried to speak, but her throat tightened. The sound that came out was small and fragile. Janet closed the distance in 2 steps and wrapped her arms around Anna, pulling her in with the kind of hug that didn't ask permission. It felt like being held up, not held down. Janet's perfume was clean and familiar, something floral with a sharp edge, like confidence. Anna's arms rose slowly, then tightened around her friend. Her eyes burned. She blinked hard. "I didn't know who else to call," Anna managed. Janet leaned back, hands still on Anna's shoulders. She studied Anna's face like she was looking for missing pieces. Then her expression settled into something steady. "No," Janet said softly, firm enough to stop the trembling in the air. "You didn't call for help." She lifted a hand and touched Anna's cheek with the back of her fingers, gentle but certain. "You called for a reminder." Anna swallowed. The stairwell light flickered once, a tired buzz overhead. Janet nodded, as if she had already decided what came next. "Let's go upstairs," she said. Inside the apartment, the small space felt even smaller beside Janet's presence. The black SUV sound still lingered in Anna's ears, like proof that something had arrived. Janet moved through the room quickly, eyes scanning corners, the bed, the dresser, the crooked frame on the wall. Her gaze landed on the wooden box and the papers laid out near the lamp. She took off her sunglasses and set them down with careful precision. Her eyes were sharp, but when they met Anna's, they softened. "You kept it," Janet said, looking at the certificate. Anna didn't answer right away. She watched Janet's fingers hover over the raised seal without touching it, like Janet understood that some things were sacred. "It was easier to forget," Anna said, voice low. Janet exhaled through her nose, half disbelief, half anger at the world. "Forget," she repeated, not mocking, challenging the word itself. She looked at Anna again. "That's not forgetting. That's surviving." Anna's shoulders dropped a fraction. She hadn't realized how tightly she'd been holding herself until someone named it. Janet opened her bag and pulled out a slim tablet and a sketchbook, stacking them on the table like tools. Then, she slid the photos into a neat row, her movements efficient and respectful. "Okay," Janet said, and the tone changed. It became practical, focused, like they were about to do something dangerous and needed a plan. "Tell me everything," Anna told her. "Not every detail, not every year, just the parts that mattered now. The envelope, the gold seal, the words black tie. the laughter waiting behind it. As she spoke, her fingers kept finding the edge of the invitation as if it could anchor her. Janet listened without interrupting. Her jaw tightened once. Her eyes narrowed once. When Anna finished, Janet was quiet for a moment, staring at the invitation as if it had personally offended her. Then Janet reached for the envelope. Anna's breath caught, but Janet didn't open it. She flipped it over, read the neat lettering again, then set it down on the table like evidence. "They want a show," Janet said. Anna gave a small nod. "They want me to be the joke." Janet's lips pressed into a line. "Then we change the script." She opened her sketchbook and snapped it flat. The paper made a clean sound. She picked up a pencil and began to draw without hesitation, her hand moving fast, confident. Lines appeared, strong shoulders, a long silhouette, a shape that looked quiet and dangerous at the same time. Anna watched the dress form on the page, and something in her chest shifted. It wasn't hope. It was recognition. Janet glanced up. "How do you want them to see you when you walk in?" Anna's mouth went dry. The question was simple, but it pulled on everything she had been trying not to want. She looked at the certificate. Her name looked back. "I want them to see," Anna said slowly. "The woman they tried to erase." Janet's smile came back, small and satisfied. "Good," she said, and went back to drawing, adding a clean line at the waist, a subtle flare, nothing loud, power without noise. Anna hesitated, then spoke the thought she couldn't keep down. "Janet, I don't have money for." Janet lifted one hand, palm out, stopping the sentence in the air. Her eyes stayed on Anna, not unkind, just final. "Don't insult me," Janet said. Anna's lips parted, but Janet continued, voice lower now, more personal. "I didn't come here for money." Janet tapped the pencil against the paper once. A sharp click. "I came because you matter, because you always did." She leaned forward slightly, eyes steady. "And because women like you do not bow." The last words sat in the room like something heavy and true. Janet stood and moved to the closet, then to the small storage space, then back, measuring the room with her eyes, as if she could already see the work happening here. She pulled her phone out, typed quickly, then slipped it away. "Today," Janet said, rolling up her sleeves with a clean tug at the cuffs, "we build the version of you they can't laugh at." She opened her bag again and took out a small velvet pouch. Jewelry inside clicked softly when she set it down. Then another pouch. Then a garment bag that looked too expensive to touch. Anna stared. "You brought." "I came prepared," Janet said, like it was obvious. Janet moved closer and took Anna's hands. Anna's skin was rough. The lines on her palms were deep, earned. Janet didn't flinch from them. She held them like they were valuable. Janet looked straight into Anna's eyes. The air between them felt quiet and charged. "When you walk into that wedding," Janet said slowly, each word placed like a pin, "they will not see a janitor. They will not see a mistake." Her thumbs pressed gently into Anna's hands, grounding her. "They will see a queen." Anna's throat tightened. A small smile tried to form, unsure if it was allowed. Janet's mouth curved, sharper now. "And if anyone forgets," she added, voice edged with humor, "we'll remind them." Anna let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Outside, the city made its usual noise, cars and voices, and distant sirens. Inside the apartment, the table was covered in proof of a life Anna had buried, and the first sketches of a life she was about to reclaim. Janet picked up the pencil again. The lead scratched across paper in quick, confident strokes. Anna sat down, shoulders still, eyes fixed on the lines forming on the page. And for the first time in a long time, The fear didn't feel like the loudest thing in the room. The Grand Magnolia Estate looked less like a venue and more like a statement carved into stone. Even in daylight, it carried its own glow. White columns stood tall against a sky that seemed edited into perfection, an unreal blue with no patience for clouds. Crystal fixtures hung from the trees like captured stars, throwing sharp light onto the lawn each time the breeze shifted. The air smelled of cut roses, citrus, and money. A line of expensive cars curved up the driveway in a slow parade. Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, sleek Teslas that moved without noise. Valets in crisp uniforms, guided doors open with rehearsed smiles. Every few seconds, a camera shutter snapped, then snapped again, feeding the moment into whatever online universe Clara lived for. Near the center of it all, Clara moved like the day belonged to her. Her gown shimmered, bright and intricate, designed to be seen from far away. Her hair sat perfect, pinned into place, like a crown had been built into it. She turned slightly for photographers, chin lifted, shoulders back, eyes gleaming with the satisfaction of someone who believed this scene proved her worth. A glass of champagne appeared in her hand as if summoned. She held it delicately, the bubbles rising like applause. "This is going to be unforgettable," Clara murmured, smiling at the cameras as if they were old friends. Beside her, Victoria stood in a tux that looked expensive in the same effortless way his expression looked bored. He scrolled through his phone, thumb moving in quick, indifferent swipes. The crowd around them laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny, eager for proximity to power. Clara leaned toward one of her friends, voice low and sweet. "Watch," she said, eyes scanning the entrance. "Everyone is going to talk about this wedding for years." Her friend's gaze flicked toward the gate. "Do you think she'll actually come?" she asked, trying to sound casual and failing. Clara's laugh came fast, confident. "Please," she said, "that woman knows her place." She adjusted something near her neckline and tilted her head toward the cameras again, refusing to let doubt touch her face. "She's not coming." The music under the trees continued, soft and elegant, strings floating above the chatter. Servers drifted through the crowd with trays of champagne, their steps measured, their smiles practiced. The white carpet leading toward the courtyard sat pristine, waiting for the right kind of feet. A few guests glanced at it like it was sacred ground. Clara's eyes tracked the entrance again, the corners of her mouth curved up, anticipation sharpened by cruelty. She had the look of someone who expected entertainment to arrive on schedule. Then the sound of a car approached. Not loud, not flashy, just steady tires on gravel, a calm roll that didn't ask permission. Heads turned in small waves. A valet stepped forward automatically. The black car moved toward the gate and stopped with a quiet precision, as if it knew exactly where it belonged. Clara didn't react at first. It was just another arrival, another guest, another offering to her spotlight. But something about the car's stillness held attention. It didn't hurry. It didn't perform. It simply waited. The rear door opened. A soft thunk cut through the music. The first thing visible was a shoe stepping onto stone, black, clean, and high, the kind of heel that didn't wobble. It landed with a crisp tap that seemed to echo longer than it should have. Then a second heel. Another tap. The conversation nearest the entrance thinned. A few champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. From the car, fabric followed. Deep black silk moved like water in slow motion, catching light at the edges where gold accents kissed the seams. The dress did not sparkle. It didn't need to. It absorbed attention rather than begging for it. A gold scarf settled across the shoulders with quiet authority. Hair braided high, structured like a crown without calling itself one. Slim gold earrings flashed once when the sunlight hit them, then disappeared back into restraint. And then Anna stepped fully into view. Her face was calm, untouched by the panic the crowd expected. Her posture was steady, spine straight, chin lifted just enough to say she wasn't asking to be tolerated. She stood still for a fraction of a second beside the open door, letting the air meet her, letting the estate see her without flinching. The entire entrance area fell into a hush. A photographer lowered his camera slightly, confused, as if his lens had found a subject he wasn't prepared to label. A server stopped mid-step, tray trembling faintly. Someone's phone buzzed, a small vibration that sounded suddenly loud in the quiet. Clara felt the shift before she turned. The laughter around her slowed, like a record losing speed. A friend beside her inhaled sharply. The sound cut through the music. Clara's smile held for one more second out of muscle memory. Then she turned her head. The moment she saw Anna, the smile thinned. Clara's eyes widened, not with admiration, but with the sudden fear of losing control. The hand holding her bouquet tightened. Petals bent slightly under her grip. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her throat worked as if she needed to swallow something sharp. Victoria, still looking down at his phone, felt the silence change the air. He glanced up, annoyed at first, like someone interrupted him. Then he froze. His thumb stopped moving. The phone hung loosely in his hand. His eyes locked on Anna with a stare that wasn't polite and wasn't casual. It was the stare of recognition without context, as if his brain was trying to match her presence to a memory he hadn't touched in years. Anna started walking, slow, steady, deliberate. Her heels struck the stone in clean taps that measured the space between her and the crowd. The white carpet leading into the courtyard accepted her like a runway. The black silk moved behind her, following each step in a soft whisper. No one spoke. Guests turned their bodies without realizing it, creating a path. The crowd's expensive chatter evaporated into a thin, nervous murmur. "Who is she?" someone whispered. Another voice answered, quieter. Phones lifted. Not all at once, but like a tide rising. Screens caught the image of a woman in black and gold walking into a world that had been waiting to laugh at her. Clara's friends shifted, their earlier excitement turning into uncertainty. Their smiles looked wrong now, pasted on faces that didn't know how to adapt. Clara stood rigid, forcing herself to breathe. The champagne in her glass trembled, bubbles racing to the surface like panic. Anna didn't look left or right. She didn't search for approval. She didn't flinch at the phones or the stares. She walked as if she had already survived worse rooms than this. As she moved closer, the scent of roses and citrus mixed with the subtle warmth of perfume that wasn't loud, just present. The air around her felt different, less like a party, more like a courtroom before the verdict. Clara stepped forward instinctively, as if moving first could restore her power. Her lips curved into something meant to look welcoming, but the muscles around her eyes betrayed her. Her voice came out sweet, almost too sweet. "Wow," Clara said, and the word sounded thin in the open air. "What a surprise." Anna slowed, stopping at a respectful distance, the kind of distance that said she understood boundaries and refused to be pushed past them. Her face remained calm. Her eyes met Clara's without heat, without flinching, with something sharper than anger. The moment held, crystal lights above them shimmered. A breeze stirred the hanging fixtures, making them chime softly like distant glass bells. Clara's smile shook at the edges. Anna didn't fill the silence. She just stood there, steady, letting the room feel the weight of her presence. And for the first time since this wedding began, Clara's certainty looked like something fragile, something that could break with one sentence. Anna held her ground in the open courtyard, as if the space had been waiting for her all along. The white carpet beneath her feet looked almost too bright, a ribbon laid out for someone else's celebration. Overhead, crystal fixtures swayed lightly from the trees, chiming soft glass notes whenever the breeze moved through. The scent of roses drifted across the lawn, sweet enough to feel artificial. Clara's smile stayed on her face like something glued on in a hurry. It didn't reach her eyes. Her bouquet was angled in front of her like a shield, the stems digging into her palm. Anna's expression didn't change. No apology, no nervous laugh, just calm, like still water with depth underneath. Clara's voice tried again, syrupy and sharp at the same time. "You really dressed up," she said, leaning into the moment as if she could force it back into the shape she wanted. Anna turned her head slightly, letting the gold at her shoulders catch the light for a brief flicker. Her eyes traveled over Clara's gown and the glittering accessories with the patience of someone reading a label. "Yeah," Anna said, slow and clear. "I did." A few guests let out small, uncertain laughs, the kind meant to prove they were relaxed. The sound died quickly. Phones stayed raised. Screens held the silence like a frame. Anna's gaze returned to Clara's face. Her mouth curved into something that could almost be called polite, if not for the sharpness behind it. "And looking at you," Anna added, gentle as a knife. "I'd say you dressed up too." Clara's posture stiffened. The muscles in her jaw jumped once. Anna paused just long enough for the courtyard to lean in. "Shame," she said quietly. "All that money can't buy class." The words landed like a glass dropped on stone. A soft gasp moved through the crowd. Someone's champagne flute clinked against a tray. A server's breath caught. A few people looked down at their own outfits, as if they suddenly felt ridiculous in them. Clara's cheeks flushed fast, the red climbing up her neck. Her bouquet trembled slightly. She tried to laugh, but it came out strained and thin, like a note played on the wrong instrument. "What are you doing here?" Clara muttered. Not loud enough for the whole crowd, but loud enough for the closest phones to catch. Anna didn't answer that question, not with words. She let her presence answer it instead, steady and unbothered. Clara's friends shifted behind her, their earlier excitement now turning into panic. One of them glanced at Victoria, searching for rescue. Victoria stood a few steps away, phone hanging at his side, forgotten. His face looked different than it had earlier, less bored, more wary, as if he had just realized something important was happening, and he couldn't scroll past it. His eyes stayed on Anna, fixed, unsettled. The silence stretched. Then, an older man pushed forward from the crowd. He moved slowly, dressed in a neat suit that didn't shine, but didn't need to. His hair was gray, combed back with care. His hands shook slightly as he approached, not with fear but with shock. He stared at Anna as if he was watching a photograph come to life. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Wait," he said, voice unsteady. Is that Anna?" The garden went truly silent. No laughter. No music felt loud enough to survive it. Even the crystals overhead seemed to stop chiming. The older man took another step closer, eyes wide, and his voice dropped into something reverent. "Adebayo," he said. "Anna Adebayo." Phones lifted higher. The name spread across the crowd in a whisper wave, fast and hungry. Anna turned toward him, her face softened by a fraction, not into weakness, but into recognition of someone who wasn't looking at her like entertainment. "Yes," she said, steady. "I am Anna Adebayo." The older man's hand flew up to his mouth. He blinked hard, eyes wet in a way that embarrassed him. He shook his head, as if the years between now and then didn't make sense. "My God," he whispered. "I worked with your father. The Adebayo Foundation? You were the face of it." Around them, the crowd began to react like a body waking up. Small sounds, scattered at first, sharp inhales, murmurs, the rustle of fabric as people shifted to see. Adabio Foundation? Someone whispered. No way, another voice answered. Softer. Clara's color drained. It happened in seconds. Like someone pulled a plug. The red in her cheeks faded to pale. Her eyes darted from the older man to Anna and back again, searching for a crack in the story. There wasn't one. The older man stepped closer and reached for Anna's hand. His grip was gentle, but desperate, like he needed contact to confirm she was real. Where have you been? He asked, voice breaking. Anna squeezed his hand back, controlled, kind. Life took me to places I didn't expect, she said. Her voice carried without shouting, slipping through the quiet like a straight line. But it didn't take who I am. The sentence hung in the air, clean and heavy. Victoria's head turned sharply toward Clara. His expression tightened. His voice came out low, calm in the dangerous way. Clara, he said, and the single word made people flinch. What exactly is this? Clara's lips parted. Nothing came out at first. Her throat worked as if she was trying to swallow panic. Then she forced a laugh again, too fast. It was just a joke, she said, waving one hand weakly, as if she could erase the moment. A harmless joke. The word joke echoed in the hush. A few phones zoomed in. A notification ping sounded like a bell. Victoria's face hardened. A joke? He repeated, quiet, sharper than shouting. His eyes flicked to the older man, then back to Anna, then locked on Clara again. You tried to humiliate her? Clara's fingers crushed the bouquet stems. Petals bent. One small blossom snapped and fell, tumbling onto the white carpet like a dropped piece of evidence. Clara's voice rose slightly, desperate now. You don't understand. Anna stepped forward half a pace, not aggressive, just present. Her gaze stayed on Clara, clear and controlled. When she spoke, her voice was steady enough to cut through the tension without raising volume. There's no need, Anna said. The crowd held its breath. Anna's eyes moved across the faces, gathered there, people with expensive clothes and uncertain expressions, people who had been ready to laugh, people now pretending they never were. Then her eyes returned to Clara. I didn't come for revenge, Anna said, quiet but carrying. I didn't come to ruin anyone's day. Clara's mouth tightened, confused by the lack of chaos. Anna continued, each word placed with care. I came to remind you, she said, and everyone here, dignity isn't money. It isn't titles. It's who you are when nobody is watching. For a beat, no one moved. Then, from somewhere near the back, a single pair of hands started clapping. 1, 2, 3. The sound grew, spreading through the crowd like a decision catching fire. Applause filled the courtyard. People stood without fully realizing they were standing. A few wiped at their eyes, embarrassed by their own reaction. Clara's face twisted. She looked around at the applause like it was betrayal, like the room had turned on her without permission. Her bouquet slipped from her fingers and hit the carpet with a dull thump. Flowers scattered across the white path, bright against the clean fabric. Clara shoved through the nearest guests, breathing hard, and ran out of the garden, heels stabbing the ground in fast, angry clicks that didn't sound powerful anymore. They sounded frantic. Anna watched her go without chasing. The applause continued, louder now, and the crystal lights overhead trembled in the breeze, chiming softly again, like the world had finally remembered how to breathe. The applause didn't end all at once. It rolled through the courtyard in uneven waves, rising, thinning, then rising again, as more people understood what they were clapping for. The crystal fixtures above them chimed softly in the breeze, a delicate glass sound that made the moment feel sharper, cleaner. Anna stood still at the center of it, breathing slow, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady. The white carpet beneath her looked less like a runway now and more like a line that had been crossed. Her dress moved slightly when the wind touched it, black silk whispering against itself. The older man remained close, as if stepping away might undo the reality of her being there. His hand was still warm from gripping hers. His eyes stayed fixed on her face, searching for the years in the lines, trying to fit time into something his memory could hold. "I never thought I would see you again," he said, voice low, trembling at the edges. The words sounded personal, not performed. "Your father would walk into a room and everything would settle. People listened. People behaved. Behind him, the crowd shifted and leaned forward. Phones hovered higher now, not just recording the drama but recording proof. Some guests looked uncomfortable, like they had been caught laughing at the wrong moment in history. Others looked hungry for the story, for a name they could repeat later at dinner. Anna's face softened slightly, but her posture stayed tall. "A lot can disappear," she said, "but not everything is gone." The older man swallowed. He nodded too fast, then steadied himself. His fingers fumbled at his jacket pocket, and for a second the movement made nearby guests flinch, as if they expected something else. He pulled out his phone instead, hands still shaking. The screen lit his face in pale light. He tapped, scrolled, then turned the phone toward Anna. A photograph filled the screen. Bright lights. A crowded room. A banner in the background with the foundation's name stretched across it. And there, near the center, was Anna, younger, smiling, standing beside her parents. The image looked like it had been taken in a different world, but the eyes were the same. A small timestamp sat at the corner of the photo, tiny and crisp, the kind of detail cameras recorded without caring who would need it later. The older man lifted the phone higher so others could see. "This is her," he said, voice stronger now. "This is Anna Adabio. I was there." The crowd reacted as if a switch had flipped. A ripple of sound moved through them, startled and immediate. Somebody whispered the foundation name again, louder this time, like saying it made it more real. Another person inhaled sharply, then leaned toward a friend, eyes wide. The name began to travel from mouth to mouth, not as gossip, but as recognition. Anna didn't reach for the phone. She didn't need to. She watched the image for a brief moment, then lifted her gaze back to the people in front of her. Her eyes moved across faces that had been ready to treat her like a joke, faces now rearranging themselves into something closer to respect. Victoria stood with his shoulders tight, jaw clenched. His phone remained in his hand, forgotten. He looked like someone who had just discovered a crack in the mirror he used to admire himself. His eyes stayed on Anna, not soft, not kind, but unsettled in a way that suggested he was seeing consequences for the first time. The older man lowered the phone and looked at Anna again, emotion gathering behind his expression. "People in this city still talk about what your family did," he said. "Scholarships, jobs, schools. You gave people a way out. You gave people dignity." The word dignity hit the crowd differently now. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a slogan. It sounded like a measure they had failed. Anna's throat tightened, but her voice stayed even. "I did what I could," she said. Then, life happened. The older man's lips pressed together. He nodded slowly, like he understood without needing details. His gaze dropped briefly to Anna's hands, then lifted again, respectful. "I am sorry," he said simply. A quiet hush settled, replacing the applause. The kind of hush that meant people were listening for the next true thing. Near the front, someone cleared their throat. A server shifted a tray, and glass clinked softly. The sound seemed loud in the stillness. Victoria took a step forward, then stopped, as if he wasn't sure what he had the right to do. His eyes flicked toward the path where Clara had disappeared, then back to Anna. The muscles in his face tightened again. He looked like he was deciding how much damage could be contained. But this was already bigger than containment. The guests continued to stare, phones still raised, but the posture had changed. It wasn't mocking curiosity anymore. It was attention with weight, attention with consequences. Anna breathed in slowly. The air smelled of roses and citrus, and a faint trace of crushed petals on the carpet. Somewhere nearby, a piece of Clara's bouquet lay on the white fabric, bright and broken, like a small accident that told the truth about the whole scene. Anna's eyes lowered for a moment to that fallen flower. Then she lifted her gaze again, calm returning to the center of her face, controlled and unmistakable. Around her, people shifted, making space without being asked, the way crowds do when they realize they are standing too close to something important. And in that widening space, Anna looked less like someone arriving to be judged and more like someone the room had been waiting to acknowledge. The hush settled deeper, heavier, as if the estate itself had learned how to listen. Victoria's shoulders tightened, and the movement looked almost involuntary, like a man bracing for impact. He stared at Anna with the kind of focus people reserved for a problem they couldn't buy their way out of. His phone hung at his side, screen dark, forgotten in his grip. He turned his head toward the direction Clara had run, then back again, jaw clenched. "What exactly did she do?" Victoria asked, voice low enough to feel like a threat without being shouted. No one answered immediately. The crowd held itself still. A crystal fixture chimed once above them, a soft, accidental note. Anna didn't rush to fill the silence. She stood with her hands relaxed at her sides, posture steady, expression calm. The wind moved lightly across the courtyard, lifting the edge of her scarf for a moment before it settled again. Victoria's gaze cut across the faces nearest him, searching for allies, for explanations, for something that could turn this back into a normal wedding inconvenience. Then, Clara's words returned to him like a bruise, just a joke. He took one more step forward, stopping at a distance that was polite and tense. "A joke," Victoria repeated, the word flat and cold. His eyes flicked briefly to the older man, then back to Anna. That's what she called it. The older man's jaw tightened. He didn't shout. He didn't perform. He simply spoke, voice steady with years behind it. "Her kindness built this city," he said. That joke only exposed emptiness. A few guests exhaled sharply, as if they had been holding their breath for permission to react. Phones lifted higher. A notification ping sounded nearby, bright and out of place, like a bell in a courtroom. Victoria's face hardened further. His eyes shifted again toward the path Clara had taken, and for a moment it looked like he might follow, might pull her back into the spotlight and force the mess into a shape he could control. But Clara had already lost control of the room when she ran. Anna watched the people around her with quiet clarity. Faces that had once looked through her now looked at the ground. A woman in a sparkling gown adjusted her bracelet as if it had suddenly become too loud. A man in a tux cleared his throat and said nothing. A server stood frozen with a tray, eyes flicking from Anna to Victoria to the scattered petals on the carpet. The applause had faded, but something else had replaced it. An uneasy awareness spreading like ink through water. Victoria's voice softened, not out of kindness, but out of gravity. "Anna," he said, and his mouth formed the name carefully, as if he understood it had weight now. "I had no idea." He looked like he wanted to add more. "An apology." An excuse. Something that could place him on the right side of this moment. Anna lifted her hand slightly, not dramatic, not aggressive, just enough to stop him. "No need," she said. Her voice was firm, calm, and the words cut cleanly through the tension without raising volume. The effect was sharper than shouting. "I didn't come for explanations," Anna continued. She looked at him directly, then let her gaze move across the crowd, slow and deliberate. "I didn't come to make anyone feel small." A few people shifted, as if the sentence had found them personally. Anna's eyes returned to Victoria. "I came for me," she said. The wind carried the scent of roses again, mixed with the faint smell of crushed stems on the carpet. Crystal chimes tinkled overhead, soft and indifferent. Anna's voice stayed steady. "And maybe," she added, eyes scanning the faces one more time, "to remind you of something simple." Her gaze settled briefly on a security guard near the edge of the courtyard, then on a catering worker holding a tray, then on a waiter whose hands were still, knuckles pale. "The people you ignore are carrying stories you cannot imagine." Victoria swallowed. The movement was visible in his throat. He lowered his eyes for a second, not fully bowing, but close enough to look humbled by reality. Around them, the crowd shifted in a different way now. Some guests turned their heads toward the staff they had passed earlier without noticing. Eyes lingered, not as inspection, as recognition, as discomfort turning into something else. A woman with a pearl clutch looked at a server and murmured a quiet thank you that came out awkward, late, and real. A man near the back stepped aside to let a catering worker pass, and the worker's eyes widened slightly at the unexpected courtesy. The older man remained near Anna, still holding himself with protective respect, as if the crowd needed reminding that she was not a spectacle. Then, from the side, a businessman edged forward. He was careful, as if approaching a candle flame. His smile was tentative, not confident. "If you ever bring back the Adabio Foundation," he said, voice trying to sound casual and failing, "count me in." Another guest, a woman with careful makeup and watery eyes, nodded quickly. "Me too," she added. "Your family's work." It mattered. The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. In the hush, they sounded like a door opening. Anna's face softened in a way it hadn't for the cameras. Her eyes glimmered, but she didn't let tears fall. She didn't shrink. "Maybe," she said quietly. The single word carried more weight than a speech. Victoria watched her as if he was seeing a version of power he hadn't expected. Not money, not status, not control, but presence that made rooms rearrange themselves. Somewhere near the entrance, someone began clapping again just once, then stopped, as if realizing the moment didn't need applause anymore. It needed change. Anna inhaled slowly and looked toward the path that led out of the courtyard. The crowd parted without being asked, bodies shifting back as if an invisible line had been drawn. This time, the space they made wasn't for entertainment, it was for respect. Anna stepped forward, heels tapping softly on stone. The black silk moved behind her like a quiet shadow. She passed the fallen petals without looking down, leaving them where they lay, a bright mess on a white carpet that could never look perfectly clean again. Near the exit, Janet waited beside the car, arms folded, posture relaxed, mouth curved into a proud, knowing smile. Janet lifted one eyebrow as Anna approached. "So," she said, voice playful, edged with satisfaction. "Was it enough?" Anna stopped for a beat, turning her head slightly to look back at the glittering lights, the crystal hanging from trees, the expensive faces trying to rearrange themselves into decency. The estate looked beautiful, and suddenly it looked hollow. Anna released a breath that felt like a door opening inside her chest. "No," she said quietly, with certainty. "It's not enough." Janet's grin widened. She reached out and took Anna's hand, squeezing once firm, grounding. "Damn right," Janet said. "Let's go build something so big they can't erase you again." Anna stepped into the car without looking back, her posture unchanged. Behind her, the wedding continued in fragments, music restarting too late, laughter sounding wrong, conversations shifting into nervous whispers. Ahead, the road waited, and for the first time in years, Anna's silence wasn't survival. It was choice. The car rolled away from the estate with a smooth, quiet pull, tires crunching softly over gravel before the road swallowed the sound. For a few seconds, the crystal lights in the trees stayed visible through the rear window, glittering like a promise made to the wrong people. Then the curve of the driveway cut them off, and the night's shine became just another reflection fading behind glass. Inside the car, the air smelled faintly of leather and clean citrus. The engine hummed low, steady, controlled. Janet rested one hand on the steering wheel, the other relaxed near the gear shift, posture loose like she had done this 1,000 times. Her bracelet clicked softly when the car hit a small bump, a tiny sound that felt louder in the quiet. Anna sat in the passenger seat, facing forward. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers unclenched for the first time in hours. The black silk of her dress pooled neatly, catching streetlight in slow ripples as they passed under lamps. Gold at her shoulders flashed once, then dimmed, then flashed again like a signal that didn't need words. Outside, the city slid by. Storefront lights, passing headlights, a bus stop glowing under a lonely street lamp. The world looked ordinary again, but her breathing felt different, deeper, cleaner. Janet glanced at her, quick and careful, then back to the road. "You okay?" she asked, voice quiet, not making it dramatic. Anna didn't answer immediately. She watched the streets like she was seeing them from a new height. Not above anyone, just no longer beneath everything. The window beside her reflected her face faintly. The reflection looked composed, calm, not because nothing hurt, but because she had stopped letting pain decide her shape. "I'm clear," Anna said finally. Janet nodded once, satisfied, as if that was the correct word. The car continued forward, smooth as water. They passed a stretch of road where the buildings were taller, brighter. A billboard flashed something expensive and empty. A group of people laughed outside a restaurant, phones raised for selfies, glittering under neon. The city kept performing. Anna's eyes drifted down to her lap. Her gloved hand reached into the small clutch at her side, fingers searching with quiet intention. Paper edges met her fingertips. The invitation, cream-colored, thick, clean, the gold seal still intact, ridged under her touch, the same seal that had been used like a weapon. She pulled it out and held it between her hands. Under the car's interior light, the gold looked less glamorous and more like a brand pressed into wax, beautiful in the way sharp things are beautiful. Anna turned it over once. The envelope didn't bend. It held its shape with stubborn arrogance. Janet noticed and let out a small breath through her nose, almost a laugh. "You kept it," she said. Anna looked at the seal, then at the name printed in elegant letters. The words sat there like an insult, dressed up as tradition. "I'm returning it," Anna said. Janet's eyebrow lifted, intrigued, but she didn't ask how. She didn't need to. She understood the difference between revenge and closure. The car approached a wide intersection. The traffic light turned red. The engine idled. A pedestrian signal beeped faintly across the street. The city's sounds seeped into the cabin, distant horns, A muffled bass line from another car. Someone shouting from a sidewalk. Anna's fingers traced the edge of the gold seal one last time, slow and deliberate, like memorizing the texture before letting it go. Then she slid the envelope back into her clutch and closed it. Janet glanced at her again, smiling slightly. "You know," Janet said, tone light but edged with steel, "they'll try to rewrite what happened." Anna stared forward. "Let them," she said. "They can't unsee it." Janet's smile widened, satisfied again. "Good," she said, and tapped the steering wheel once with her fingertip. Tap, like punctuation. The light turned green. The car moved. They drove a while without speaking. The silence wasn't heavy. It was earned. It sat between them like a calm surface after a storm. As the road opened up, the sky ahead began to change. The horizon softened into deep gold and muted orange. The last sunlight stretched across the tops of buildings, turning windows into sheets of fire. The color felt like a blessing the city didn't deserve, but received anyway. Anna watched it through the windshield. The glow caught in the black stone at her necklace for a brief second, then slipped away. The stone stayed dark, steady, quietly present. Her phone vibrated in her clutch, one short buzz, then another. She didn't pull it out. She didn't need to. She could already imagine what it was. Messages, notifications, the story moving faster than any rumor Clara could control. Janet's car merged onto a quieter road. Less traffic, more sky. The engine's hum lowered, smoothing out. Anna's reflection returned in the window, clearer now against the fading light. The image looked like a woman who had been knocked down and stood back up without asking permission. No crown, no applause, just posture and choice. Janet broke the silence gently. "So," she said, keeping her eyes on the road, "what's next?" Anna inhaled slowly. The breath went all the way down, filling spaces she hadn't realized were empty. "Work," Anna said, and the words sounded different now, less like survival, more like intention. "Not the kind I've been doing." Janet nodded, already there with her. "The foundation," she said quietly, not as a question, but as recognition. Anna's fingers closed around the clutch. She felt the envelope inside it, still sealed, still heavy, but no longer sharp. "Yes," Anna said, "something that lasts." Janet's grin returned, bright in the golden hour light. "Now you're talking," she said. The car continued forward, the estate far behind them, shrinking into insignificance with every mile. Anna watched the sun sink lower, painting the sky in soft fire. The city's skyline thinned in the distance. The road ahead looked open, unclaimed. She leaned her head back against the seat for the first time all day and let her shoulders drop. The tension in her body loosened in small increments, like knots coming undone. In the quiet, she reached into her clutch again and took out the invitation one last time. She held it up, letting the gold seal catch the final sunlight through the windshield. For a moment it glowed, almost pretty. Then Anna lowered it, and in that motion, the glow disappeared. Pretty, then empty.